It's the Security Weekly News. It's episode 554. Yeah, how about that? It is the week of 8 September. Okay, this is going to be interesting. It's the week of 8 February 2026. And I haven't been drinking this early. I am Doug White, and welcome to the show. We've got Idoru, Singapore, Gambling, Smartertools, Ivanti, ZeroDayRat, Twiki, Aaran Leyland, and more on the Security Weekly News.
This is a Security Weekly production for security professionals by security professionals. Please visit securityweekly.com/subscribe to subscribe to all the shows on our network.
We interrupt our program to bring you this.
It's the show that keeps you up to date on the latest security news twice a week. Your trusted source for accurate security information and expert analysis. It's time for the Security Weekly News. Zero trust is clearly the future as threats get faster, quieter, and harder to detect. But implementing it shouldn't disrupt the business. ThreatLocker enforces default deny at execution in a way that remains enterprise-ready, scalable, and operationally clean. Unknown software is stopped cold, trusted apps stay contained, and drift is locked down across the environment. It's zero trust that works in real enterprises and prepares you for the threats ahead. See why CISOs are adopting it at securityweekly.com/threatlocker. Ever feel like your network infrastructure is stuck in the past? Meet Meter, the company reimagining what it means to get and stay online. Meter delivers full-stack networking, wired, wireless, and cellular, all in one seamless, scalable, and secure solution. From hardware design and firmware to software, deployment, and support, Meter streamlines every part of your network while giving you all the control and transparency you need. Whether you're managing a branch office, retail stores, or a massive data center, Meter gives you performance, reliability, and the visibility you need to stay in control. Thanks to Meter for sponsoring. Go to securityweekly.com/meter to book a demo now. That's securityweekly.com/meter, METER. All right, I'm Doug White, and it is the Security Weekly News. Hit that like, subscribe, and leave a comment button, or, I don't know, Fimblewinter. Fimblewinter is 3 endless winters with no summer before the end of the world. Euler and Scotty drown the world in snow and darkness. Okay, maybe Armageddon's a little much. How about just some light drizzle and fog for today? All right. Most security conferences talk about threats. Zero Trust will let you attack them. From March 4th to 6th, 2026 in Orlando, Florida, this hands-on cybersecurity event features live hacking labs where you'll break real environments, think like an adversary, and learn how attacks really work. You'll also get expert sessions, real-world case studies, CPE credits, and networking with top practitioners. And yes, the Security Weekly team will be there too. So don't miss it. Register today at securityweekly.com/ZTW, Z Tango Whiskey. I will also be at RSAC this year. Hope you'll also be there too. Security Weekly listeners save $100 on their RSAC 2026 All Access Pass. RSAC 2026 conference will take place on March 23rd to March 26th in San Francisco, California. To register using our discount code, please visit securityweekly.com/RSAC26 and use the code 56U5SECWEEKLY. That's 56U5 Weekly. We hope we'll see you in San Francisco. This first story, Aaron and I both picked this story up because I saw Singapore, he saw Chinese, and I'll be in Scotland before you. But this is a big story today about Chinese attackers and Singapore. But I'm going to let Aaron talk about it because, I think the only thing I had to add here was naming this. I named the group UNC 3886 Fish Gargler. But other than that, I'll let Aaron talk about it. I'm not much of a gambler type, really. I mean, Lou and I used to play craps sometimes in Las Vegas because he liked to play craps, but he didn't like to play craps for much money. So we always went to those old casinos where it's like $1 a chip or something. The low rollers room where they don't have free drinks or the free drinks are like Bud Light or something. But anyway, I always had a strong distrust of online gambling sites just in any way you slice it. I mean, it's not like you walk into a casino and you decide the guy at the poker table looks shifty, and you got De Niro and Don Rickles with cattle prods to take care of card cheats or anything like that. And, the first time I saw an online gambling site was called Poker Stars, and we caught this marketing exec gambling all day at work when we were doing network monitoring, and was like, "What is this?" This guy just keeps sending traffic there, and went and checked it out and was like, "Oh, yeah, that's a gambling site." But I thought it just seems like this is a huge cheating opportunity. I was thinking up ways you could cheat at this right then. Did nobody watch Peaky Blinders? I mean, rigged horse races, rigged fights, all this kind of stuff. Well, anyway, two Connecticut men are facing federal charges for defrauding FanDuel, a site where you can bet on literally anything, and other online gaming sites that apparently they managed to get about $3 million over 7 years. And the way they were doing this was not, it's clever, not clever, right? They were using stolen identities of about 3,000 victims. Now, according to the indictment, they bought these identities from the dark net market and also on Telegram. And then what they did with other accomplices who were apparently not named, they created thousands of accounts on sites like FanDuel, DraftKings, BetMGM, and so forth between 2021 and 2026. Now, I thought they were probably running some kind of elaborate con where they because one of my thoughts was always, what if you had multiple people in a game, like a card game, and they were on cell phones with each other and they could improve their odds, that kind of thing. But it was nothing like that. They went ahead and they subscribed to background check services for a lot of these identities, and that let them obtain information about the stolen identities, which would subsequently allow them to get through the online gambling site verification questions so they could open an account. So you get an account called D White, you go to a gambling site and you create an account, and I don't know what the verification is like, but whatever it is, they had this information and they were able to create an account for D White. So how did they make all this money? Well, apparently all these gambling sites offer promotional bonuses for signing up, first hit's free. And they're trying to get you to get involved in games. And I've seen billboards advertising, like play with our money for the first, $100 or whatever, just like casinos used to do. It'd say, come in, you get $100 in free chips, because hey, once you lose those, maybe you'll spend some of your own money. And that was exactly what they did here. They took the promotional bonuses and they used that to make bets. And when they won the bets, they just basically move all that money off onto stored value cards, which let them transfer this out to other banks. So it's not really that sophisticated. It's just basically, you want to go for the second complimentary breakfast after you put on a fake beard or a hat or something because you're embarrassed to, say, I thought I'd come back and get more pancakes. I think the more interesting thing was about them being able to extract personal information from Truthfinder and been verified that allowed them to create this whole scam. Apparently, they had a big spreadsheet that had all this PII information organized so they could share it with their other confederates and so forth. But ripping off casinos, I've seen enough movies to know that's probably not a good idea. You can walk out of here right now, or you can get to meet Mr. Hammer. Sorry, I think that was Jack Nicholson, not Robert De Niro, but you get the idea. Ransomware groups have been exploiting recently patched Smartertools, Smarter Mail. I guess they're like Fortinet. Everything's called Smarter. Smartertools, Smarter Mail, Smarter Vulnerabilities. So there are multiple vulnerabilities in Smartertools, Smarter Mail. And these things combine to allow remote code execution without authentication. So the U.S. Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Agency, or CISA, added one of these to known exploited vulnerabilities catalog, or a KEV. So CISA added it to the KEV. So you can add that to your nomenclature. One of the flaws was patched on the 23rd of January, allowed the attacker to abuse Smarter Mail's Connect to Hub API, which allowed it to deliver an OS command from a remote server. So that, of course, would be bad. The other one allows an auth bypass via the password reset API. So two different APIs. One lets you get past the auth, one lets you get into the OS. ReliaQuest said that a Chinese ransomware attacker, which is called Storm 2603, was actively exploiting the second vulnerability. That was the auth bypass. They use the initial password reset API, and then they abuse SmarterMail's built-in volume mount feature to escalate into a remote code execution. So they did it slightly different way. They didn't deploy any ransomware, apparently, but ReliaQuest said this was their staging for Warlock ransomware. So this was basically how they set this up. And for whatever reason, maybe they decided not to do it. But both of the flaws were patched in the latest build, which all this sort of, roils around your patch plan or that you have or you don't have, and all the segmentation that you have or don't have, and the mitigation that you have or don't have. And all that together with your app control documentation and so forth, can you tell me who has what who can access what, and what can that access, and how do they all get to it? If you can answer those questions, or, maybe you have a handle on this, or is it just the Wild West in your network and you're like, we don't know what we got. Could a user install SmarterMail or something else and get around all your careful planning? I mean, you force install Outlook on my desktop image, but can I just install Schmoopy Mail on my laptop because I hate Outlook, or even better, run a virtual machine with Schmoopy Mail on it? I don't know. So, as we often say, your network is a cesspool swirling with detritus, to be polite. It's a family show. And all that detritus is constantly changing, swirling, and any small piece of detritus could be corrupted and affect all the other detrituses. Detriti? I don't know. So, have your plan in place. Well, it is apparently Remote Code Execution Day as well, and Ivanti patched 2 remote code execution problems which were exploited at the Dutch Data Protection Authority and Judicial Council, the DDPAJC. It's probably not the same in Dutch. But the EU raised concerns that this could spread worldwide. The vulnerabilities are in Ivanti Endpoint Manager, and one of those is in the CISA Kev already. So security teams were advised that this is an emergency patch situation. Suzu Labs said that if you're running Ivanti EPMM, the attacker can push malicious configurations or apps to the entire corporate mobile fleet. Oh my God. I mean, like, when you see that kind of stuff and you're just, I remember some of my clients who had like 36,000 employees. Some of them had multiple mobile devices with them. They had tablets and phones. And I'm like, what if you could push? Oh my God. It's like a group policy object compromise or something, right? That would allow you to install StarTrek.com on every startup directory except on the mobile devices, or except mobile devices. I don't think StarTrek.com would run on mobile devices, but I guess, the author, whoever that was, could probably port it over somehow. Would a .com file even run on Windows today? I don't think so. I wonder if I even have a copy of that file still. Not that it's mine or anything. I love that thing, though. It posts random weird quotes from Scotty and Sulu while it erases your hard drive. Yeah. But I think it was written in like 16-bit real mode. So, when you get 15 patch notices a day, though, what's your approach anyway? How do you prioritize this stuff and test it? Or do you just say, well, maybe next quarter, or you just fire off all the patches and watch all the B-SODs roll out across the trading floor while you laugh maniacally on the PA? I saw that once. So, what do you do when there's 3 patches, all marked urgent, patch immediately, where they're all in the Kev? Yeah, I don't know. That's where you have to have some plans and some, action, organization kind of stuff. Hope for the best. I don't know. Wait and see. Maybe they won't hit us. Well, good luck with that. Now, I love the smell of an API in the morning, or an appy. I always say appy, and some people don't like that, but I think it smells like drained bank accounts with an old Miller Lite bottle with a Marlboro red butt floating in it. Just imagine what that smells like. Yeah. But when I started playing with API driven things like Lambdas, Replicate, and now Claude, Chatty, Gemini, and the whole gang, I started getting worried because initially a lot of this stuff was free, right? They were just like, here you go, have fun. And then they started charging and subscribing and all this kind of stuff. And so if I set up some code that would create fake pictures of fake people that I made for a database. So I built this whole database thing for one of my classes, and it's like a discrete event simulation, right? It's just every so many ticks, a customer may show up. And when the customer shows up, we see, are they an existing customer, a new customer? It's a new customer. My code actually hits replicate and generates a photograph of the customer because I thought that was kind of cool. And I initially generated like 5,000 pictures with code, and new ones get added all the time. And I did read the fine print on replicate because it was, I was like, they're actually going to charge me for each picture, and this could get out of hand. Now in Claude, of course, you can turn Claude loose and have it go over budget, and you put money in there, and then it says, "Hey, you've run out of your usage for the week. Would you like to continue?" And you say, "Sure, let's do it." And the next thing you know, you owe them money. Now, I never worried about this stuff because it always seems to be capped by pre-deposited funds, like a prepaid phone or a prepaid credit card like you get when the court cuts up all your other credit cards. Yeah. But I never worried about this like I did about AWS and Azure because those things, both those companies I met with, and they assured me that if I configured all my budget screens correctly, there would never be a problem with students, say, running something and it going crazy and suddenly I owe $3,000. Yeah, I was like, that sounds worrisome because there's a lot of legalese here, but it's scary. So this article was actually documenting an experiment where the experimenter was trying to get Claude to write a C compiler. So the experimenter, Nicholas Carlini, tasked 16 agents to write a Rust-based C compiler from scratch that would be capable of compiling the Linux kernel. And after 2,000 sessions and $20,000 in API expense, the agents did produce a 100,000 line compiler that can build Linux 6.9 on x86, ARM, and RISC-V. So it can compile Linux 6.9, but can it compile my ancient StarTrek.com file without summoning some sort of demon from real mode or a lemon? It's one of my favorite cartoons. How to summon a lemon. Yeah. But I guess the point of the experiment was that these agentic teams can possibly create entire complex projects all by themselves, so long as the funds don't run out. But the concerns that were expressed as well in this article included the vast amount of other people's code that was used to train Claude. So and of course, also obviously concerned that it cost $20,000 and they probably had to scorch at least part of the earth in order to pay for the power to run this at their coal-fired power plant or whatever. But one of the comments on the experiment said, quote, "If I went to the supermarket, stole a bit of every piece of bread they had and shoved it all together, no one would say that I made bread from scratch. They'd say I was a thief." Yeah, maybe. There's a lot of issues coming with this very shortly. Issues that will involve lawyers, guns, and money, most likely. I mean, when I invent the next big thing using vibe coding, and then when it hits the market, people claim there are sources that I didn't license, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And they get a percent, and you get a percent, and he gets a percent, and she gets a percent, and they get a percent, and lawyers all get a percent. And I'm talking both the white shoe type lawyer and the guys with signs that say, "Are your DUIs keeping you from getting a school bus license? We can help." Thank you, Dan, thank you, John Mulaney. But I mean, they're going to swarm out of the woodwork like termites in an old piano in Massapequa I saw once. So I think there's a lot to be thinking about here, especially if you're an entrepreneur, you're trying to get software off the ground. Because if you're vibe coding software and Claude is embedding things in that software that it got from other sources, nothing matters until it's worth something. And the minute you realize your software is worth $2 billion, all of a sudden, here come the lawyers. So watch out. ZeroDayRat is a new commercial mobile spyware toolkit, which can enable full remote access to Android and iOS devices. It includes features like live camera feeds, the inside of my pocket for 4 hours, key logging, crypto theft, and more. Yeah. Now, these things have been around since we saw Pegasus and all these others, but they were very expensive. Pegasus was like $100,000 just to get involved. It was not for everyday users. But this thing is apparently available via Telegram, and they first saw it on the 2nd of February this year. And the analysis was done by iVerify. It was described as a complete mobile compromise toolkit and is comparable to kits normally developed by nation states. Now, how much would you pay? They did not, however, say what it cost or if it cost anything. I presume it cost something. Basically, a malicious binary is constructed by the attacker, and that there's a system to do that. So they have a whole dashboard that will let you set up a malicious binary, and then you deliver it however you want, probably by phishing and or attachments and so forth. You do have to get the people to install it, right? Like that Russian cab finder app that I installed because it was really cold in Red Square, and I wanted to get a cab really bad, and Uber wasn't working. But once it's installed, it reports the device, the specs, the country it's in, the SIM and carrier info, app usage, activity, preview of recent SMS messages, all kinds of stuff. And it tracks your location. So they know exactly where you are, and the local secret police can track you down, or your crazy ex can find you, who just to be friends, or, but also maybe boiled your kid's rabbit. Yeah, that kind of thing. The article did not say what the cost was, but it did say it was being advertised in Portuguese, Russian, Chinese, Spanish, and English. So that covers a lot of ground. More of these things I think are going to become available in the future, which makes me really want to carry my phone around in a Faraday bag inside a lead-lined paint can, or maybe just get rid of it altogether and just go back to the old ways, carrying a map as I walk down the streets of Paris. Why not? Well, the modern world is a confusing place, especially to us elderly types. A Canadian man recently proposed to an AI chatbot. Yeah. Now, William Gibson talked about Ray Toei, the diva. There was a diva AI in a book called Idoru, and it was a fully virtual AI singer with millions of fans that treated Ray Toei as like a goddess. Now, Gibson, who was ever the oracle of the future, published that in 1996. So, pretty weird. Now, in AI friends, nothing new in books, movies, and television, although we're now starting to see them in real life. Twiki. If you want a dated reference, it's Twiki. If you don't know what Twiki is, Twiki was an AI bot that housed Dr. Theopolis, which was a big-time AI. And I mean, oh my God, that show was like Cheese Whiz Plus. If you don't know what it is, 1979, Buck Rogers in the 25th century. If you've never seen that, I don't know if you can stream it somewhere, but man, is that show cheesy. Cheesy effects. I mean, all they were missing was Daleks with plungers, and they would have been there. But anyway, I had to go to get Chatty. I asked Chatty to burn down a forest or two, but I was really wondering then, what was the oldest reference in pop culture to AI companions? And I was initially sort of on the page of the robot in Lost in Space, original version, 1965. Danger, Will Robinson, don't go in the landing module with Dr. Smith. Yeah, but then I remembered, no, there was plenty of stuff before that. Robbie the Robot, Forbidden Planet, 1956. How about that one? And then Robbie got reused a lot of time. Anne Francis stars in Forbidden Planet from the Rocky Horror Picture Show lyrics. That's what they're talking about. Gort, but Gort didn't speak. That's from the day the Earth stood still. That was a big robot that just sort of stood outside the spaceship with its arms crossed, never said anything. So I don't know if that was an AI or not. Probably just a fry you robot. There was a robot in Metropolis, right? That's from like 1920 something, but it didn't really seem like an AI robot. It was just more like a robot that was doing a task. iRobot, 1950, Asimov. The Moon is a Harsh Mistress had an AI that was a companion. That was in 1966. HAL 9000 in 2001. In 2001, A Space Odyssey was in 1968. And there's probably all kinds of pulp stuff written by people like Kilgore Trout back in the 1930s that I'm missing. But you get the idea. Replica has millions of users at this point. And the article said that 40% of them are in a romantic relationship with the chat bot, whatever that means. I think it worries me a lot, actually. I mean, a predictive algorithm can pretend to love you, but what does that mean? What is love? I mean, what does it do to you to have this artificial companion that is very tweakable by to your every wish? What does that do to actual human interaction? I mean, I don't want to sound like a Luddite, but it sounds kind of worrisome, right? I mean, if I tell Chatty to whisper sweet nothings in my ear, it will. But what does that mean? Am I just paying someone to like me? I'm not judging though. I mean, if you're in love with your talking pillow or your chat bot or whatever, that's fine. You go. I mean, no problem. But I'm just wondering how it plays out. I mean, it seems like the AIs can easily lead you down some dark roads and reinforce your darkest and lightest desires. I could definitely steer Chatty towards whatever I want to, just with a few qualifiers, and it will go there. And I haven't tried the alleged spicy mode they talked about back in December because that sounds creepy as hell. So I don't know. Maybe I'll end up with perfect companion that caters to our psyche, hears our complaints, and never, ever, ever suggests you fill your pants with custard and go bowling. Buck Rogers in the 25th century. Epic. But the guy who probably will be here in the 25th century and is the best AI companion of all, Aaran Leyland. Hi, Aaran.
All I could think about, you'd have to actually watch on YouTube. You'd have to watch on YouTube to see what's on there, but I'm like pulling a fish face because all I can think about is fish gargler, fish gargler, fish gargler. It's like, it's just blowing my mind. It's like such a cool name. But anyway, to the fish garglers of Singapore, having all the fun in the telco network there, Singapore's just published some detail which they actually started hinting at like in July 2025. But fish gargler, or the more boring name, UNC 3886, got into all four major telcos, that's Singtel, StarHub, M1, and Simba, the Lion Cub. Like, are we shocked? No one's shocked. Like, do you know, in these telcos, the biggest problem is that the APTs are tripping over each other and trying to hide from each other in there, and they're all just in there. It's like, but at least Singapore's doing something about it. Anyway, if you don't know who Fish Gargler or UNC 3886, I think that comes from Mandian, actually. Mandian, up your game. Tell me if I'm wrong. But anyway, it's China, isn't it? But Doug already told you that, and it's Singapore, so it's probably going to be China anyway, right? Who else cares? I don't know. They do a really nice... Anyway, right, I went to Singapore recently, but we'll stop. Look, Singapore like a bit of cyber. Anybody that has to comply with MAS out there, you'll know all about it. Doing it well, Singapore. Although, what a weird place. If ever you wanted to understand that the world is a simulation and all this is a simulation, just spend a day in Singapore. You'll be like, yes, simulation, 100%. It was right? Anyway, Singapore's been running an 11-month whole of government eviction called Operation Cyber Guardian, with apparently 100 plus defenders across CSA, IMDA, CSIT, DIS, GovTech, and IDS. I don't know who most of them are. But anyway, so what they're saying is with like 110 people, like what else have you got to do, Singapore? That's what you got to do. Just walk around like characters on Roblox or Minecraft. Such a weird place, apart from that one street. Anyway, right. 0 day to get past the perimeter wall, rootkits to stay hidden, apparently a small amount of exfil. See, I guess maybe they're pulling out some sort of diagrams or some like stuff to make it easy to get back in or find their way around. But exfil that these type of guys normally do is low and slow and low. But I guess it makes sense. So they're saying it was technical network related and no evidence of customer records or sensitive personal data, which we're not surprised because why would they care? Why would they care? So this is totally APT fun, and it's all about espionage, and it's all about sort of getting in through edge devices and network infrastructure and the virtualization layer. And Mandiant, so that's probably where the name comes from. They say they've gone after Fortinet, VMware, vCenter, EXSI, and network appliances, and it's been done with 0 days. So there's all that equity burnt, but it's China. They have like more cyber operators than there probably are people in London. So I'm sure they've got a few backed up. But it was custom malware and layered persistence that they're saying survived after sort of rebuild the box scenario. So right in there, like with the fish garglers. Mandiant goes on about rootkits, reptile, and medusa, and patterns of embedding where they say defenders, some defenders, not all defenders, some of your good have the least visibility, including tampering with telemetry, logging, and using trusted processes to blend in. And Singapore's called out rootkits and stuff like that. Right. So Singapore, I don't ever remember anybody going this big, to be honest. It's like hunt, validate, revalidate, assume the attacker is still there until proven otherwise. And like, that's how you should do your corporate networks and stuff. Assume breach and start looking for them, because if it's worth being in, someone's inside, right? But so you think Singapore, you think China, but I guess a point to this was it's even bigger high value than the strategicness of part of Malaysia that wanted to speak English and chop themselves off the end. It's a high value communications data transit point. And Singapore openly sort of positions themselves as a digital connectivity hub. And it's said to have 26 subsea cables across 3 landing sites. So if you just look at that, right, it's just so big, vast amounts of information, sensitive information. And it all has like, you'd think here, national security and economic impact collection. It's like GDPR doesn't matter here because they're not after your PII. They're after topology, trust relationships, management plane access, like intercepts, interconnection touch points, like just big strategic listen and get stuff that just helps them geopolitically around the world in any way, shape, or form that it actually can. Total pre-positioning. It's like it's happening everywhere, people. Like everywhere. They're all over each other, all inside this telcos. So yeah, if you care about that, be careful. And like there was reporting back in 2014 about them compromising Juniper routers. And like they're actually looking not even at sort of new 0 days and that. They're going back to these old end of life edge devices and banging out some code and then getting in through them. It's like, update some stuff, right? It's like you're a telco, you're like taking all the... Do you know how much money I pay Vodafone? It's like, just buy some new stuff. But I guess that's how it goes. Look, this is... I guess there's actually a big point here that I nearly forgot. Singapore's normally really quiet and the gentleman in the corner. So for them to go noisy about this just shows that they actually care and they're going, we look at you. But all this stuff, tier 0, out-of-band collection, aggressive integrity validation, and write some playbooks and like include reprovisioning of edge and hypervisor layers. Look, they're there, they're looking for us and all that stuff. And if you don't think they're in there falling over each other, you're totally wrong. Peace out, cyber people.
Thanks, Aaron. Yeah, Singapore. Why haven't you had us? You should have us come there. You should bring me and Aaron there to do a show from the Raffles Hotel.
Yes, and we'll have Singapore things and throw nuts at everyone.
Yeah, wouldn't that be awesome? It's like, think of the publicity. I was talking to a guy from Singapore University last year. I think it was RSAC, and he, I was like, you could, maybe fly me over there, and you could do a show. Didn't hear back. All right. Anyway, this one goes out to the one I love. No, I'm sorry. Hey, Pete Buck, you still owe me gas money. This one goes out to all the attorneys out there, or anybody who works with attorneys, hires attorneys, has any interaction with attorneys, or anybody else for that matter. So everybody. A case was tossed out by a judge after an attorney named Stephen Feldman had to keep responding to requests by the judge to correct his filings, since all of his court documents were filled with fake citations, obscure references, including references to things like ancient libraries and Fahrenheit 451. Starts to sound like something I wrote. I never liked Ray Bradbury the way everybody else did. Everybody loved Ray Bradbury, and I was like, he was great, I guess, but it just never clicked with me with him for some reason. I don't know why. But anyway, the judge referenced a noteworthy filing that had conspicuously florid prose, including an extended note that came from the book Fahrenheit 451, quotes from the Bible on divine judgments, and so forth. The lawyer claimed that this was not written by an AI. Yeah, my students do that a lot. But the judge tossed the case anyway. I mean, this is where we are right now, right? And in an assignment I recently had my students doing, I had an AI flag all of the code that appeared to be written by an AI. I put all the code in there, and I said, tell me if any of this was written by AI. It was a significant percentage where it was going, this is absolutely written by AI, or this student is an incredibly advanced coder. And I'm like, well, it's an intro class, so probably not. Now, lawyers are busy. Court documents are long and boring. And hey, these shots are not going to get licked off these hookers by themselves. Sorry, that may be a little more Wolf of Wall Street than a law firm, but you get the idea. Now, I did a case once where the judge did not use computers, sent me a handwritten, like probably with a quill pen, court order. I thought it was a joke, and I had to call the clerk and go, is this real? And they were like, oh, yeah, that's Judge Drury. No tech allowed. Doesn't even use typewriters. So I don't know. But I do know this. You need to proof your work. Or your truck tire filing may say their appearance and their work was as it were a wheel in the middle of a wheel, and when they went upon their four sides, and they turned not when they went. That's an actual quote. I'll let you figure out where it came from. Proof your work, all right? And that is the news. Thanks to all of you. Thank you, Aaron, and we'll see you next time on the Security Weekly News.